My name is Bryce Robinson, and you're watching the Sam Fox Shop series of videos. Today we're going to talk about knife work, utility knives, X-acto knives, how to use them, when to use them, how to be safe and effective no matter where you are in the world. Thanks for joining us. These are the things you need to change the blade in a utility knife. First, we're going to do an easy one. This is a quick change style utility knife. We can see the blade is pretty damaged and we want to replace it. So we're going to press down on this button, slide the blade out. If the back end was in good shape, I could simply flip it around and reinsert it, but it's not, so we're going to get rid of this. Instead, I'm going to put in this really cool serrated blade that I got. I'm going to press in the button, slide the blade in, wiggle it to check and make sure it's seated, and we're good to go. So that's an easy one. Still easy, but takes a little bit more time, is our standard shop issue Stanley retractable utility knife. You press down and slide forward to slide the blade out, and you can also lock it at different intervals to get different depths of cut. So for this knife, to change the blade, we need to press and retract all the way to the back of the track. We need to either use a Phillips head screwdriver or a flat head screwdriver for this operation. The screw here will take either. I'm going to use the Phillips head today. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove this screw. This is the single screw that keeps the knife together. And we want to make sure that we don't lose or misplace this. So if it falls on the floor, go find it. With the knife shut, with the blade shut, we're going to slide back the top and open up the clamshell. On the inside, you can see how the knife works. I have the blade here and a little carriage, and it slides and clicks forward and locks into these different notches. So with the blade all the way back, I'm going to hold down on that little carriage. I'm going to pull the blade out. Sometimes there are new blades in the handle, so I'm going to use this new blade in the handle. I want to make sure that when I put the blade back together, there it is, it's seated, and you have to slide it in like that. Now I'm going to reset the blade in the housing. If I want to make sure it's going to work, I can just hold it down and advance it. With the blade retracted all the way, I'm going to put it together the reverse of how I took it apart. These two pieces slide together. Okay, if you've done it correctly, it should be a nice closed seam all the way around. And then I'm going to reset that screw. Little trick, if you don't have a screwdriver to change these, oftentimes you can actually use the blade itself as a little screwdriver, as long as you're careful. So that's how to change a blade in our standard shop issue Stanley retractable utility knife. Now we're going to change the blade in an X-acto knife. Here are different handle styles of X-acto knives that are available. This is probably the most common. This configuration of blade is called a number 11. It's the most common style of X-acto knife blade that you can buy or use. To change the blade, hold on to the handle and then turn the knurled part. It's this little textured part right here. If it gets a little stuck, you can hold on to the blade, give it a little wiggle, and slide the blade out. New blades often come in this protective paper that keeps them from rusting. and you just take and slide apart one blade, separating it from the rest. Making sure not to stick yourself with the blade. Pull back the collar. Slip the tail end of the blade into the slots. Make sure it's seated all the way at the bottom. And then holding on to the top of the blade and then the knurled part, tighten it up. And that is the same operation for any Xacto knife that takes a number 11 blade. To replace the blade in a snap knife, loosen the thumb screw, slide the blade forward, and then tighten the blade back down, leaving a score line exposed. With a pair of pliers, grab onto the end of your blade, snap away. To completely change out the blade, remove the thumb screw, slide the entire carrier all the way to the back of the knife. This allows me to put in a brand new cartridge. This one's still got some life in it, so I'm going to put it back. Remember, when you're using a snap knife, only use the amount of blade that you need to do the job at hand. Never, ever, ever use more blade than necessary to do the job, because you saw how easily they can snap off. Another kind of snap knife that works essentially the same way has a cap that comes off the back. This allows you to withdraw the blade more quickly, but they're a little less secure. Spent blades or other sharps should be disposed of in your local sharps container. We have these throughout the Sam Fox school, but there are other ways to get rid of them if you don't have one. So let's say you need to dispose of a blade and you don't have a sharps container. Take a piece of tape, it doesn't really matter what kind, and make a little pocket for your knife. Fold the tape over, adhering it to itself, and this will make it harder for the blade to break through the trash bag and potentially hurt someone. When it's time to make straight cuts with your knife, a ruler is going to be really helpful. A few options that are available to you are metal front, metal back rulers. These are not our best option because they tend to slide around on the surface we're cutting on, so we're not going to use these today. Another option that you might have at your desk is an architect scale or a plastic ruler. These are not ideal because the plastic can actually catch on the blade of your knife and you can end up damaging these. So we're going to not use these as well. Two really great options that we have available for us are metal top cork back rulers. These provide a nice, sturdy, sharp, hard surface to ride that blade along, but also the cork keeps it from sliding around too much as we're cutting. On a larger scale, we can use the straight edges that are available to us in the shop. These are extruded aluminum. They're very resilient, hard, straight, and they've got a synthetic foam that works the same as the cork. But for our demonstration today, this little cork back ruler is going to be perfect. So when I'm using a ruler, I want to make sure that I spread out pressure along the length of the ruler. I want to hold my fingers nice and wide. Notice how this finger, which might have been in the way of the blade cutting, I've tucked back. Anytime that you can do that and protect your hands is ideal. If I end up holding the ruler on one side and I'm cutting, that pressure can make that ruler pivot or move as I'm cutting. So I want to make sure I really spread out that weight all the way across the ruler. When I go to make my cut, I don't want to hold my knife way back here. I actually want my finger right up against the blade. I'm going to press my middle finger against the cheek of the blade, and I'm going to pull it parallel right along the edge of that ruler, nice and gentle, when I make my cut. Your cut should be crisp, clean, sharp. There shouldn't be any tearing, pulling, or dragging. And that goes for any type of knife that you might use. If I need to cut a stack, I simply need to come back multiple passes to make sure I've cut through all the layers. And you can hear and feel when you finally cut through all layers in the stack. This can be a really efficient way of generating a lot of parts, getting through a lot of material. When cutting cardboard, it's important to think about how the cardboard is actually composed. So this is a corrugated sheet. It's got 2 layers on either side. In the middle of the sandwich is a zigzag. That zigzag fluted layer gives it structure and rigidity, but it also makes it sort of want to behave in certain ways. Let's take a closer look. So on the inside of this little sample sheet that I've torn away, you can actually see the corrugations. If I break away that top layer, I can use this to my advantage if I want to make that cardboard roll or take on a certain shape that's curved. But it doesn't want to work the same way. It just crushes when I go the opposite direction. So you have to think ahead about how you want to cut the cardboard to suit your project. If I cut along the flutes of the cardboard, you end up with a sort of soft edge where I hit the inside edge of one of those flutes. But if I cut across it and I just score it a little ways, I end up with this really nice, crisp line and a much more sort of rigid geometric structure that is starting to build strength. And this is where our 2D projects become 3D projects. The rigidity of those folds allow me to make sort of architectural, sculptural, structural forms. They can hold weight. Of course, if I come back and cut clear through that, and I don't have to start at the edge. And sort of start wherever you like. When cutting cardboard, it is important to use the appropriate knife for the job. If I'm doing long, straight cuts, or I'm just trying to break the material down, using a retractable utility knife or snap knife is the most appropriate. Have a long, straight blade. I'm making a long, straight cut. Just retracting only when I need to do the job. Again, long, straight blade, long, straight cut. If I'm doing more nuanced or curvy work, I'm going to use the shorter blade. I'm going to take advantage of what the Xacto knife has to offer. You can get a more tight radius, you can get a really, really clean, precise cut. And if it's sharp, which it should be, I can have a tremendous amount of control. I can even cut on an angle and reveal a different way of seeing that corrugation as I'm cutting through. Okay, so we're in the shop, and in all the shops we have these really nice wooden butcher block tabletops. Please, please don't ever cut directly on these. We have this amazing material that you're actually sitting on called Sintra, and it is sheet PVC, and it'll keep these tabletops protected so we don't have to refinish them and you can have a nicer cutting surface. But we got something better than that. So what you're looking at right now is a piece of Sintra, that sheet PVC that we use to cover tabletops. It's great because when you cut into it, it protects the table beneath it. But it does leave a little ridge of a line that really never goes away, and eventually we have to replace it. Another great option is to use a self-healing cutting mat. These you can get at any art supply store. They're all over the Sam Fox School, and as you cut into them, they heal right back up. So the lines that are cut into these mats are really, really faint, and they don't affect your future projects as much. If you don't have the money, or you can't find one of these where you're at, another great option is to take the back of your typical art pad or newsprint pad and just use this piece of chipboard. It's a really great sacrificial surface. It operates in the same way as the Sintra tabletop. It protects your table, and it's cheap, and you probably already have one. Whether you're working at home, your own studio, or in the Sam Fox School, it's really important that you're thoughtful about the surfaces that you work on when using knives and other sharp implements. We don't want to work on countertops or tables directly. Never work on a concrete floor. It can damage and tear up your blades. Don't work in sensitive spaces or on tiled floors. Don't work on top of nice furniture. And definitely don't work on top of table saws or any other piece of machine equipment that we have here at the Sam Fox School. Thanks for watching our video on how to use Xacto knives, utility knives, and other sharp implements while working in the shop. Please like and subscribe to our channel and keep up with the latest videos that we're producing so that you can be safe, functional, and prolific no matter where you are. Thanks again.